Welcome back to Monster Tamer, a 2D Pokemon-like RPG created Phaser 3. Previously, we worked on addressing a few bugs in our game. If you missed the previous videos, there'll be links in the video description to the source code to this point, as well as the clue source code for this video. There'll also be a link to the previous videos if you'd like to catch up. So let's get started. For our next feature for our game, we'll work on adding in support for multiple encounter areas, and adding in support for special tiles we want to add to our game. By special tiles, an example would be when our player's moving through our grass here. Currently, when we build our level, our grass is baked into our background image that we're using for our world scene. And so due to this, when our player moves, our game object is always on top of this other game object. To make our game a little bit more dynamic, we'd want to enhance this so it looks like our player's actually moving through the brush. And then we could extend this later with other tile types. A good example is if our player's in the water, we might want to have part of our sprite be hidden by the waves and have that animated to have our player swimming around our water. So to see an example of our new feature, we're going to update our world scene to support these special tiles. So now when our player moves through our encounter area, we're going to update our tile map to indicate if there should be a special tile in that location. And if there is, in our code, we're going to add in some new game objects to have them appear in front of our player. And that way it looks like our player is actually navigating through our grass. And just adds that dynamic effect to our game. So to support this new feature, first we'll need to jump over to Tiled, and we're going to work on updating our tile map data to support multiple encounter areas, and then we're going to add in a new class for our tile type for that particular encounter area. Once we're done refactoring our tile map, we'll export this out and work on updating our Phaser code to use the new format with our new fields that we've added. The main change here is since we'll be going to multiple encounter zones, we'll need to be able to support creating more than one zone in our game. Once that's done, we're going to refactor our logic tied to how we check for encounters, and then that way we can support adding in these game objects when our player moves and playing our sound effect for when they're moving through the grass. So to get started with our changes, let's open up Tiled and we'll open up our existing level. In case you need to re-download the Tiled project, there'll be a link in the video description down below to this page here on GitHub. This page has all of the available game assets for Monster Tamer, and what you'll want to download is the Monster Tamer Tiled Assets 3 zip folder. This will have all of the assets you need for Tiled and the latest tile map from our video series. To support our new feature, there's two main changes we need to make to our tile map. The first is going to be tied to our encounter layer. Currently, we only support one layer for our encounters, and we're going to update our naming convention so we can have more than one layer, and we're going to group these together under a folder similar to what we did for our NPC. As an example, we'll have this encounter folder here, and we'll update our layer name to encounter area 1. Then in our code, we'll make a change so we can support multiple encounter zones, and we'll look for this prefix on our layers. Our second change will be tied to our custom encounter class in Tiled. For this, we're going to add a new property called tile type, and this is going to be used for our special tiles. That way when our player game object moves into one of these areas, if we recognize there's a custom tile type, then we'll have custom logic we can run in our game. For our grass tiles, this will be our trigger to have us put a game object in front of our player to make it look like they're walking through the brush, and it'll be our trigger for playing our sound effect for moving through the grass. So to start making these changes, let's open up our level. And first, we'll update our layer name. So for our layer name, we'll do encounter, and we'll do area, and then we'll add in our number for our suffix. Now we'll want to add a folder to group these together. So let's do a new group layer. We'll call this encounter, and now we'll want to move our layer into that group. So now for our second change, we want to modify our custom class. So come up to View, let's go into our custom types editor. So for our custom types, we'll start off by adding in a new enum. For our enum, we're going to call this encounter tile type. Now we want to add in our values. For our first value, we'll do grass, and then we'll add a default value for none. Now we want to update our encounter class. Let's add in a new member. We want to set this to our encounter tile type. Now for our name, we're going to call this tile type. We'll update our default value to be none. Now let's save. Now if we come back to our map, so now if we select our encounter area layer, we'll see our new property is now showing up. So let's change our tile type to be grass. So with currently how our map's set up, for our encounter areas, right now we only have one main area, and that's for our starting zone. If we wanted to add in support for other area types, such as if our player is able to fish or swim through our water, or if they could just encounter monsters without going in our grass, we could add in a second area, and then we could set our tile type appropriately. And so by default, if we do none, we won't do anything extra in our game logic, but then if we have another custom type, like if we're in the water swimming, we could have a water animation where it looks like our player's swimming. But for the time being, we're just going to stick with our one main area, and we'll have our tile type be grass. Alright, so now with our changes, now we just need to export out our data as JSON. So if we come to File, let's do Export As. It's now for our file, but we want to do main_1, and then we'll do JSON. Alright, so with that, that wraps up our changes in tiled. So now we need to jump back over to our code, and we're going to import in our new JSON file. Alright, so back in our code, we want to make sure we place our JSON file under Assets, under our Data folder, and we want to replace our existing main_1 JSON file. Now that we've updated our TIlemap data, we'll work on adding in one more asset for our game, and this is going to be our bushes PNG that we currently use in our TIlemap. We're going to reuse this sprite sheet for when our player moves around our scene, and we'll have that image appear in front of our player. So to add in this asset, we can either copy our image from our tiled project folder, or there'll be a direct download to this asset in the video description down below. If you can grab a copy of that file, we'll want to place that inside our assets under images. We'll go under Monster Tamer map, and we'll want to add in our bushes PNG here. Once we've added in that file, now we just need to update our preload scene and our asset keys to have this new asset. So we'll start off by going into our asset keys. We'll come down to our world asset keys after our beach. We'll do grass. Now if we jump over to our world scene, we'll come down to our code where we load our world assets. I'm going to copy this code here for our beach. We'll paste it. We'll update our reference, and so we'll have our grass. And now for our path, we want to do our Monster Tamer path. This will be under our map, and then this will be our bushes PNG. And then we'll have the same frame width and frame height. Alright, if we save, when our browser refreshes, we shouldn't see any errors tied to our new assets. Alright, with that brings this video to an end. In our next video, we'll continue working on our new feature, and we'll focus on updating our game logic to support our multiple encounter areas. So as a reminder, there's a link in the description of the video to complete source code for this video, and as always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoy the content. If you did enjoy the video, please consider liking the video and hitting the bell icon to be notified when the next video in the series is released. For more great Phaser 3 content, please see some links on your screen now.